making sure everything works, and we'll go ahead and get started, okay? What we're going to be doing today, I'm running a little bit low on time today, but over the weekend, you know, I was thinking about how a lot of times when I practice at home, let's see here. Not sure why that won't go away, but hopefully I can see your chat here. Maybe I'll try and do this. Give me just 1 second. Okay, perfect. Tom is here. Awesome. Darren is here. Cool. Okay. Looks like everything's working okay. Samuel's here. Okay, so when I was sitting at home practicing a lot of times, when I'm sitting with my family and we're watching TV, hey, Susan, hey, Con, I'll sit and practice, but I won't practice with, you know, an amp or something. I'll just sit on the couch with my guitar and I'll play. And I started thinking about how a lot of times when I'm traveling, I do the same thing. I'll travel, and I might be on the plane and I might be practicing. I use this little guitar neck called a shred neck, which I didn't bring today, but I will bring it sometime and show it to you. Hey, Stanlin. Steve is here, Doug is here, Mike is here. Hey, everybody. So what I thought I would do today is maybe break down some ideas of things that I try and work on to kind of synchronize my hands better. So there's 3 different categories, and we're going to work on one of those categories today. Hey, Ralph. Hey, Mark. Hey, Wes. So the first one is that we've got a left hand, okay? I shouldn't say left hand. I should say our fretting hand, right? Our fretting hand. And that's not what we're going to talk about today. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about our picking hand. And we're going to talk about some things that might work very well for that, okay? So what I want you to do is think about this. The next time you're sitting around and, you know, you don't want to bother anybody, or maybe you don't have an amp nearby, or just using an acoustic guitar or whatever it might be, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to take that guitar pick. Oh, and one more thing too. Sometime in the near future here, I've got a channel switcher that's been on order for like 3 months. So I'll be able to actually switch my camera angles, so I'll be able to do close-ups and things like that. But it hasn't shown up yet. Since I've moved into my studio, I ordered this thing a long time ago, and I'm still waiting for it to show up. So eventually that will get here, and once it does, then I'll actually be able to switch camera angles, and you can see close-ups and things like that. We're just not there yet. Hey, Tyler. Hey, Larry. Paul is here. Brett Nelson is here. Tony is here. John is here. Cool. Okay, so let's just go through this quick. I don't want to take too much of your time. And I got to go live after a little while again here, so I got to get prepared for that too. But let's say, for instance, you were working on something. Let's say you're working on a pattern like this, where you're trying to get used to doing 3 notes on one string and then 1 note on the next string, right? Wherever it might be on the guitar. Okay, anywhere you'd like to be. What I like to do is I like to take that idea and break it down and separate the parts out. So if we think about it, we have to figure out what is the slowest of the 2 hands when we're trying to develop various ideas on the guitar. And it could be all kinds of different things. I'll show you sweeping and different things in just a second here too. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to do that, but what I want to do is focus on my picking hand. So I have to think about the fact that I'm going down, and then up on the next string, whatever 2 strings you're using. Okay? And that's what I want to start working on, is trying to develop that. Now, there's all kinds of, you know, things about how to practice. Like, do you practice it slow and with a metronome? And then, you know, if you go on YouTube and you look up my name and you look up the term bursting or burst, you're going to find a video where I talk about how to practice things fast too, because sometimes practicing it slow isn't always the answer. It depends on the situation, but let's just kind of bypass all of that for right now and just think about the fact that when we're playing, what we're trying to do in this particular case is we're trying to get used to being able to play 3 notes or 3 picks on a string. So we're playing down, up, down, right? So we have to get comfortable with just being able to think about how that feels and feel the down beginning and the down ending, and that's kind of what you're focusing on. Right? And you do that over and over and over, and you just kind of lose yourself in that practice of trying to just get that down, up, down to work. Now, the trick is the next one, the upstroke that comes in. For me, again, we could get into economy picking and all kinds of different things, but just bear with me for now, and then adjust it to whatever it is you're trying to do. So as I do this, and I do that up strum, what I'm going to do is instead of trying to practice both of these hands together, I'm just going to isolate the picking for now and develop, is that where my problem is? Am I having a hard time playing down, up, and then down, up to make that connection, right? And then I could go into, left hand or fretting hand, which we'll probably do next week for our Monday motivation. But I want to separate these and figure out where the problem is, isolate the problem, and then fix it. Right? So I do that over and over and over, and this is where maybe my pick angle, right, or different kinds of things like that, I might start thinking about some things like that to try and figure out what's the best way to approach this to make that work. Just over and over and over, just trying to make that function, okay? So you might do that with 2-note, or you might do that with 3-note, anything like that, but just think about how, give me 1 second here. I just want to make sure my heater doesn't kick on. Otherwise, you're going to hear this big, loud humming in the background. Okay, so if that makes sense, the most important thing here is that you're trying to just isolate a particular technique to figure out how you could do it better, instead of just sort of mushing the two together, the two hands, and hoping that everything works. Sometimes when you do that, it's okay. It might work great, but you might also encounter that something just isn't, you're not able to overcome a certain speed or a certain, element of your technique. And if you break apart your two hands and figure out what's going on, that can help you enormously. So let's think about, for instance, like sweeping, for instance. Let's say I did this. Okay, now we know that if we're practicing something like a sweep or an arpeggio, we call it, right? When I do, there's lots of different ways I can approach trying to do something like an arpeggio or a sweep. But one thing that I want to do, let's just say I'm starting from the 5th string and I'm going through the 1st string. I want to start getting used to two things. Number one, coming to rest on the next adjacent string as I go. And learning to have control. And notice how I'm just deadening the strings as I do this. Okay? I want to gain control as I do that, so I'm not just kind of pushing through, but I'm actually trying to get this. So now again, I'm stopping on each string as I go. Now, all the time when I'm doing something like an arpeggio or a sweep, I'm not always stopping on the adjacent string. So the other thing that happens is that you get used to just flowing through like you're strumming, right? So when you do that, it's a little bit different technique. So let's say we were doing something where maybe I'm going like this. We'll just do just something like that. So now I'm just doing 10, 9, 7, 8, 7. Just something like that. Now, obviously, as I do that, both my hands are trying to work in conjunction with each other to make this happen. But you can see how if I separate those out, because I can't just go, right? I can't just strum it like I would a chord unless this hand is capable of going at that same speed. They have to find this happy medium to make this work. So as I'm doing this arpeggio, I'm going to do one of two things. Either I'm going to come to rest on the next string in line, or I'm going to kind of control it and just machine it through like this as I play. I'm not going to rest. I'm just going to kind of push through. And they're two very different techniques if you haven't thought about that before when you play. So as you're trying to do these sorts of things, it's very important to think about that. Now let's keep going with some other stuff. I want to get to a few other things that I try and practice that I think would be really great for you guys. Okay, so one is this. Let's say you're trying to practice, for instance, doing alternate picking, okay? So there's a few different things that you could do with alternate picking. And again, I apologize I don't have a close-up shot of this at this point, but just do the best you can. And of course, you can watch this later if you need to. So as I'm playing here, let's say I'm alternate picking, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a down, up on each string. So I'm going down, up. You see that? Now, it's harder than you think. Like when you go, it's easier when you add in this other hand, okay? So it's just a great practice for me. I love doing this sort of thing. So what I'm doing is going, so down, up, on each string. And as I go, I might practice each string going back up this direction, right? Something like that. Or you might string skip. If you ever do any string skipping stuff, maybe you go like that. Or maybe you just do one note on each string. You see? And you can just practice these things over and over and over without an amplifier or anything like that. Just defining what it is that you know that you need work on, and then just sitting there and practicing it. Let's say you're trying to do something like you're trying to learn how to hybrid pick using your finger, right? So you're trying to develop a pattern for you to use. Now, oftentimes when we hybrid pick, we're using a lot of alternate legato in there as well. And a lot of times we might even jump over strings. So let's say we were going to do something where we're using our pick and our middle finger at the same time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to develop a pattern where I'm going to go 4th string, and then I'm going to use my middle finger on the 2nd string. And then I'm going to go to the 3rd string with my pick, and then the 1st string with my middle finger. So I have, and I'm just practice that over and over and over. And I know that probably sounds terrible on your side of things, but you get the idea. Right? So I'm going pick on the 4, middle finger on the 2, pick on the 3, middle finger on the 1. And then to round this out, I might go back to pick on the 3rd, middle finger on the 2nd. Like that. You see, and you can practice that over and over and over, just sitting there, practicing just what's going on with your picking hand, whatever it is that you're trying to do. Right? Or just 2 strings. Or maybe you do a triplet pattern, like that. But see, now what I'm doing is I'm doing that triplet I showed you at the beginning, or that 3-note per string pattern. And the second time, I'm jumping over a string. You see, and that way I can just get used to the things that are happening with my picking hand, and then bring in my fretting hand and work on things with that, which we'll do next time. We'll do that on Monday next week. But see if you can't develop this into something that works for you as a daily practice routine, certainly over the next week. See if you can't find a few of these patterns, and if you can, do me a favor, make a comment, after this live session. If you've been practicing, come on back and make a comment on it. Let me see what kinds of things that you've been working on, or if it's been helping you. So anyway, I hope that helps you. That's going to be it for today. I hope you have a wonderful week. It's very, very cold here in North Dakota. I hear it's pretty cold across most of the United States right now. But anyway, stay positive, keep practicing, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon, okay? Bye, everybody.